Okay, I am now recording on my machine here. I'm going to scale down the music. It's 9:03. All right. All right, all right, all right. I love that. Okay, so we're getting themes for the week for this Manifest Monday call. Themes for the last week. For those of you who did your Sunday planning, I would love to hear it. So Eric Sombrano, Recover was his theme. Awesome. Awesome. Scott Brocklebank. Whoa, Scott Brocklebank with
Whoa.
Gain. Sorry about that, sir. Looking good.
All good.
No one can pronounce my last name either, so it's all I understand. All right, Scott says Gain. Dickens says keep going. These are good themes, you guys. All right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This call is actually an open call. It's open up to everyone. So there's lots of people that are coming in that have not necessarily done the Sunday planning exercises before. They don't necessarily know how to score themselves. If you like, you can hold yourselves accountable. Those of you who are scoring yourselves, you can put your scores in the chat for last week. Otherwise, I love themes. If there was an overwhelming lesson that you learned and you'd like to share, that would be good to also type in the chat as well. And I'm just so unbelievably thankful to have a whole bunch of y'all here with me on these Mondays. So how we're going to do this is because there's people here from just purely real estate backgrounds. There's people here that have done a whole bunch of deep work on themselves. There are people in here that are just basically like, what the fuck is this Manifest Monday? None of this is even fucking real. Like, what does that even mean? Right? What is manifestation? What does this have to do with my real estate business? How do I make an extra $100,000 or $1 million this year? It's exactly why we're here. So, and it's also been a really long time. Gordon can admit to this, where I've actually done weekly calls. So, all right, people who are just jumping in, it's okay. Good. I see Michelle. I see a Tim. I see a few other people. All right, cool. Here's a theme. So while you're all typing into the chat what your weekly theme was or what lessons that you would like to share with people, the theme that I would like to bring up today is, are we living our life based on our past, or are we living our life with zero conceptions and with the future in mind? What the fuck does that mean? Says a lot of people. Let me go through that. So I wanted to share, the mind itself. There are four pieces to who we are, right? We have our mind, we have our body, we have our heart, and we have our spirit. There are four pieces. Western civilization, Western culture, so it enamorizes the mind. Like, everyone's completely in love with this from a very young age as children, right? How can we figure our way into and out of things? How can we figure our way to be more loved and liked and accepted by other people? How can we figure our way to be an entrepreneur and be a type A and like really jump hard into everything, right? Like, all of that is kind of where we sit with our mind. And when we think about it, a lot of you who are in the Life Unlimited pods, we go over this a lot, right? If you think about the mind is the only thing amongst the body, heart, spirit, and mind that is just the computer program. It's not actually real. We have fed the mind with how we functioned as children. And every single thing from the time we were 0 to 7 years old just completely went right into our subconscious mind. There was no filter. There was no consciousness that says, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. I choose that, I don't choose that. We were just children. We were babies looking for that safety, looking to be loved, looking to be accepted. And therefore, every single thing that our parents, our friends, our spiritual leaders, our teachers, every single thing that went right into our brains became, that's a new story, that's a new paradigm, that's a new belief that I have. And I'm going to operate in this manner for the rest of my life until I maybe become aware that I'm even operating that way. So how does this relate with your real estate business or any entrepreneurship journey? How does this relate? Well, I'll tell you right now, there's a whole bunch of different topics that I have a list that if this call continues, we're going to continue going through each and every one of them individually. But here's one, and I'm going to share the ones that I have come across because I'm a direct result of having the strong mind and having the strong brain and coming to the table with being able to be the one that figures everything out and building the 8-figure real estate business and building the huge team and getting all these deals, only to realize that that was not the purpose of my life. So how is this in relation to that? Well, here's one of them, right? The mind is good at figuring out problems. The mind is good at taking everything that we've gone through in the past, all the failures, all the lessons learned, all the challenges, and what does it do, right? Well, it keeps us safe. That's the primary purpose of this mind. It wants to keep us safe, secure, and feeling like everything's okay, everything is safe. If we live our lives that way, I'm going to make an example in real estate. If you are a beginning real estate investor and you're looking to reach that financial freedom, get out of your corporate grind, moving into that side of you, right? What does your brain do the moment you're like, well, shit, I have to actually talk to people, especially if you're an introvert? Like, I have to talk to people. I don't have any value to offer them. I'm brand new at this thing. I can't even call myself a real estate investor. I'm not going to, you know what? I am going to do a whole bunch of busy work and not do the one thing that I think is going to actually move the needle forward. And this isn't just for one person, this is for everybody, because all of a sudden you're trying to do something different that you haven't done before. And so the mind chimes right in and says, that's different. That's not what you normally do. That's not your paradigm. So therefore, let's first make it super, super, super uncomfortable so that you don't even want to or can do any of that stuff. Let's put all the fear, let's put all the anxiety, and let's put all the fear of failure and the fear of not being accepted all over, because you're trying to shift those neuron pathways in your brain to do something that is uncomfortable. And then we're going to go to another survival mechanism, says the brain, to the heart, to the spirit, right? The brain says, okay, if you're going to make me do that, then I'm going to come up with a whole bunch of different safety mechanisms, one of them being procrastination. Well, I know I have to do it, and I will do that next week. Well, I know that needs to happen, so but you know what? I have so many things to do before I get to that. I have to get ready. I am not ready. I'm not ready to do the thing that I know I need to do. I have so much more learning to do. I have so much more materials to gather. I have more YouTube classes to attend. I have more seminars. I have more books to read. Right? And this is not just for business. We can use this for your family life. Well, I'm not ready to make that big shift yet because, well, I'm not ready to have a child yet because I'm not ready to get married yet because the brain is coming up with all sorts of different stories. And one of the things we cover in our Life Unlimited courses, right, is that the brain itself is just a program. It's the only thing that's actually not even real. It's something that we have created and we have trained to be as strong as it can be, to become that type A high achiever. So going back to the theme of this week's call, how much of you is living in the past, is living just in the programs of remembering the failures, remembering the stuff that has happened to you, keeping you safe and safe and safe so that your entire world's like shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. Can't have another partnership because that partnership went bad. Can't do this part of the deal because of this happened. Can't, take time off my W-2 because this could happen, right? Can't do this because I might take time away from what is generating cash for me right now. Cash being survival instead of cash being just another energy source. So where in your life, and this is the question for a lot of you guys who do have journals, where in your life are you living in the past? And all of those stories and things that you've done in your history is impacting the decisions that you're making today, and that's really going in the negative, which is important. That's part of the shadow work, part of what we do. And now let's do a shift. We're going to do a mindset shift. And one thing that you can say to yourself, right? So we close our eyes, we take a deep breath, and we say, I am responsible for my life and everything in it. If you're doing this with me, say it with me. I am responsible for my life and everything that is in it. I take full responsibility for my thoughts and my actions. I am a result of everything that I have done and thought up until now. And if that's the case, here's the most magnificent piece of what I have found over just the past 5 years in doing this work. Every single moment is actually a blank slate. Every single moment does not have to be controlled by all of the programs and all the stories and all of the beliefs that we have encountered from 0 until 7 years old, and then from 7 years old until now, right? When we start to be aware of what those paradigms and stories are. Well, I'm afraid to do that because I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid to do that because I'm afraid of what other people will think. I'm afraid to do that because I'm afraid of the unknown. All of those is the mind coming to play. But when you realize that every single moment, we're in a new state of being completely reborn. Imagine if you were born right now and you had zero experience. What excites you? What drives you? What's something that you can do today that brings you closer to living out your true purpose, or your being fulfilled every single day? What if grinding isn't even a thing? What if working for the grind, working for money, working to produce isn't actually what you were put on this earth for? This is where we start to move into flow and alignment. In order to do that, we first have to take responsibility for our lives, for all of our thoughts and all of our actions and everything in it, right? It's empowering to do that, right? I am a direct result of every single thought, every single action, every single decision that I have made up until now. Beautiful. From right now, we can make decisions. And now we can choose to work within the mind, or as I like to say now, the heart has to lead and the mind follows. So in your heart, what is the thing that excites you most? And what's one step that you can do today to lead you into that excitement? What's one step that can make you feel a little more fulfilled? And by the way, it doesn't have to have anything to do with real estate or business or finance, right? What if just walking on the beach today is something that you can do to move more into fulfillment? What if having a collision conversation, knowing that there's something off in your relationship today, maybe having that conversation with your spouse or your partner is what needs to happen to bring you both more with your hearts connected? And what happens when we get more into this heart state, when we get more into feeling open and feeling connected, is we start to attract better deals, better partners, more money, more rest, more energy to have with everything that we have with our kids or our spouses, including ourselves. To sidetrack into one of my side topics that we're going to be talking about on one of these calls, addiction to busyness is also a condition of the mind, right? Some of us, and I am a direct result of this, became so addicted to being busy, to have to do so much stuff every single day in order to say that we have value. How do you know if you're addicted to that busyness? Stop everything for 7 days. How do you feel? What if you cleared your entire calendar and did absolutely nothing? Nothing for your work, nothing for your family, and you just were. I'll tell you right now, for me, it was extremely, uncomfortable is not a word. I was pretty much, I don't want to say the word, suicidal, but what I had zero value when I went through this exercise. I felt like I had zero value. Who am I when there was nothing to do or nothing to accomplish, nothing to achieve? And then all the guilt and the shame and all of the stories, right? That all came forth. And my job, my only job was to acknowledge and write down everything that was coming into my mind. Guilt, 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 shame, do something, do something, do something. Okay, I'm going to write that down. Where does that come from? What voices in my head were talking to me at that moment? The inner critic that a lot of us have, which is it's so unbelievably strong every single moment, every single day, and it just doesn't fucking shut up for so many minutes, so much time. And when you realize that all of it's just a computer program that you have programmed in your head, and it could be a beautiful program that produces and feels fulfilled and feels purpose and fuels everything that you have in your life, or you can let all of those old stories become the virus that keeps you from moving forward. So here's the shift again. Every single moment is not dictated by anything that happened in your past. You get to choose what your moment looks like right now. Imagine being born right now with zero experience and zero understanding of the world. Where do you want to go that drives the most excitement for you right now? And know that the very first answer that comes to you before the mind gets involved and starts to qualify and starts to critique it, that's your heart. And if we follow the heart, everything comes back to us, including the stuff that we chase, like money, like survival, but then so much more comes in. So the question for you guys on this Manifest Monday, right? Which will be always the question. What do you want to manifest this week? What do you want in your life that maybe isn't quite there yet? And what's one inspired action that you can take today, maybe right after this call, to move into that alignment, to move into that flow? And you're in the right space. We have a framework that we go through in our Life Unlimited pods, right? Where the first one is awaken. We have to awaken to the fact that we are programmed by our own stories, that we do have our computer running constantly in our heads. And once we awaken to that fact, we then move into that attack phase. Attacking meaning, what are the stories in our head that we can actually acknowledge and challenge, right? What's the opposite story? If I know what this one is, then what's the opposite story? Gordon and I have done this exercise so many times, and a lot of you have done it in Life Unlimited. What's the opposite of that story? Well, I can't do that because if I do that, I will, lose all my money. And what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, shame and guilt and homelessness, and my wife will leave me, or my spouse, and I will be homeless living under the bridge on 3A. Okay, let's feel that for a minute. Is that story 100% certain and true? Maybe. Most likely it's not, because here's the other question that many of you have already been asked at a lot of our live events. What's one truth in your life, one story, one thing that you absolutely knew to be true in your life that turned out to be false? And what if that can be applied to every single story, every single statement that you make? It's only true if you believe it to be true. Most likely, there's no chance it's 100% true. There's always evidence to support something else. So again, you get to choose. We go from awaken to attack to then attract which is where we are now, if you were born in this moment, what is the thing that excites you most? What if you can move towards that one thing, right? What was the one inspired action you can do to move towards that thing? And then from attraction, we move into alignment. Alignment, and you know you're in alignment when you can wake up in the morning and you ask yourself these three questions. How do I show up best for me today? So much of this, so much of eliminating these negative stories and silencing that inner critic all comes from more and more and more self-love. I don't want to say lack of self-love because that brings us into the lack. The mind loves that lack word and it jumps on it and grabs it. So how do you move more into your self-love? Right? What fuels you every single day? Brandon Turner has a fantastic line, right? The one thing that is a non-negotiable for him every single week, regardless of what's going on, is he gets his weekly massage appointment. Why? Because that's when all of the insights, all of the downloads, everything comes to him on that 1 hour when he's on his table. Right? So, oh no, I can't do that for me because I have so much going on, right? I have so many deals in the pipeline. I have this team I'm trying to build. I have a family that I'm trying to spend time with, and I have this and this and this and this. What about you? What about the self-care and self-love? And what if it all starts from self-care and self-love to then start to look at the stories to awaken to these stories? You have to have inert value first. That's what I found in those 7 days of doing absolutely nothing. When all of those things, all of the guilt and all that shame and all the stories and the critic and everything started to come out, I started writing everything down, everything down, everything down. And my coach at the time said, okay, at the end of every single day, you take that list and you look into a mirror. And this sounds corny to some, but it was totally, totally worth it to some. I give yourself a hug and you say, you're doing great, Nick. You're doing great. And you guys can do this too. You take a deep breath. Little Michelle, you're doing great. Little Dickens, you're doing great. Little Eric, you're doing great. Everything that you're doing, everything that you're thinking, everything that you are right now, little Scott, you're doing amazing. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. You are doing everything you're supposed to be doing. There's nothing that you're missing. And from that space, what do you want to create? What excites you? Where do you want to go? That's alignment. So the three questions that we can ask ourselves every morning, once you're in alignment, because it takes a little to get there. You can use gratitude, you can use meditation, you can use all of these silencing techniques, right? You can use the self-love technique by going to the mirror. And then once you're there, here are the best three questions to know if you're in alignment. How do I show up better for me today is always the first one. Number two, who else do I want to show up for today? If I could pick one person in my life right now and say something meaningful or do something meaningful or really show them that I'm showing up, show them that they're being thought of and valued today. Who is that person? And then here's the third one. What can I do today that moves me forward into my most excitement, my most amount of passion, that makes me feel just completely open, connected, and loved? With those three questions asked every single morning, all of the other stuff that the mind and brain think about, all the setting up the VAs or getting the calls done or learning how to close better deals, learning how to buy more profitable rental properties or how to take over management, like all that stuff is tactical. All that stuff is brain and mind. Don't worry, your brain and mind are strong enough. They'll figure all that out. What we're doing now is activating the heart. And by activating the heart, all the other things will fall into place. Remember, the heart has to lead and the mind will follow. So that's what we got for these 25 minutes of Manifest Monday. And normally how we would do this, again, these are open to a lot of people, not just our Life Unlimited members. So we're going to have a lot of different people that might think we're absolutely nuts and crazy. Who knows? But this is just kind of how it is, right? And I would encourage everyone, if you're in the chat, and I'm going to look at the chat here now. If you guys have any questions or you want to add anything, let's do the chat. We've got about 5 more minutes. And if anybody has something specifically to add to the chat, if you want to add something, if you want to ask a question. Gordon says, instead of using the mind as a tool, we become obsessed with using it. That's it. That's it. Generational programming. All right. We have some takeaways. Oh, there's a note taker. We got Andrea's note takers in the house. All right, you guys. So if we're going to close this out, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a few deep breaths. We're going to take a deep breath in. Another deep breath in. And one more. And we'll repeat after me. I am responsible for my life and everything that is in it right now. I take full responsibility for everything that I have and who I have become right now. In this moment, I have the ability to choose who I am in this very next moment. So now the question is, who do you choose to become? And what leads you to your most excitement that you can do today, that you can do for your week, that you can do for yourself? Because God damn it, you are fucking loved. Much, much, much love, everybody. I'm going to give everybody a quick little wave. If you're in the WhatsApp groups, feel free to light them up if you like, or go to the Facebook groups. Otherwise, see you next week, Monday. Talk to you guys in a bit. Woo!
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Diggins. Thanks, Eric. Thank you, Gordon.